Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. His Excellency Dr. Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, Indonesia, Ministers of the Second United Indonesia Cabinet, His Excellency Mr. Karl, His Excellency Dr. Suryan Pitsuwan, Secretary General ASEAN, Their Excellencies, Ambassadors, it gives us great pleasure and honor to welcome you on the occasion of the first ASEAN-EU Business Summit 2011 in Japan, prosperity in both regions. The summit seeks to bring together ASEAN representing both regions. Distinguished participants,
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The President of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Dr. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you coming to the very first ASEAN-EU Business Summit. Today, we are also honored that His Excellency Presiden Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono will open this business summit. His presence shows Indonesia's strong commitment to ensure that key business-to-business partnership between EU and ASEAN will continue to grow in a win-win way. At this special moment, I would like to express my appreciation and gratitude to all parties who have helped to organize this event, especially to ASEAN Economic Ministers and EU Commissioner for Trade, the ASEAN Secretariat, the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, and the European Business Chamber of Commerce for their support in organizing this business summit. I would like to particularly thank to my colleague Minister Pangestu for her chairmanship of the ASEAN-EU Business Summit Steering Committee. Furthermore, I would also like to thank all the representatives of ASEAN and European companies for coming today. I know that some of you have traveled a long way to join us. I am also glad to hear that the response from Europe has been very positive, with around 150 participants coming from Europe and more than 300 from ASEAN countries. This is indeed a strong sign of the interest of European business in ASEAN, as well as the interest from the ASEAN businesses to link with their European counterpart. Given the significant benefit of this important event, I hope this first summit will be followed by many more dialogue and networking events between ASEAN and EU businesses, including subsequent summits. His Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN and the EU have enjoyed a close relationship for over 30 years and have successfully joined hands in building ever stronger bilateral ties. In 1980, the ASEAN-European Community Cooperation Agreement was signed to formalize the formation between our two regional organizations. Since then, the ASEAN-EU relationship has been based on the shared values of peace, stability, and solidarity, as well as the shared belief that regional integration will bring prosperity and peace for our people. Allow me to remind us all that the idea to organize this first business summit is to bring together entrepreneurs, public and private investors from ASEAN and the EU to address important issues regarding trade relations between the two regions, while at the same time identifying new business and investment opportunities in both sides. After all, we have a robust and growing economy, a population of close to 600 million, and an equally vibrant growth center compared with other parts of Asia, such as China and India. We also have Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and India. Or some bilateral agreements between individual ASEAN member states and the EU are being negotiated in ASEAN. Cooperation between ASEAN and the EU is to provide a forum whereby business input can be channeled to government, economic ministers, and EU Trade Commissioner later today, and that the recommendation from this summit.
General of ASEAN Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is one of the first results of our ministerial meeting in Da Nang of trade and economic cooperation. I look forward to the ASEAN region during little over 1 year as EU Trade Commissioner. And success, but also the shared commitment of both our regions to integration, both at home and in the global economy. Achieving your goal of an ASEAN economic community by 2015 is of keen interest to the EU, facing budgetary issues which might scare off some investors and hamper growth. Explain what is working well and how things can be improved. Let me close by thanking Minister Pangestu for taking the initiative to organize the summit, and His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Indonesia, Dr. Yudhoyono, for hosting today's important event in the framework.
And now speech by His Excellency Dr.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Your Excellency Dr. Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, President of the Republic of Indonesia, Chair of ASEAN, His Excellency Hatta Rajasa, Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Her Excellency Dr. Marie Elka Pangestu, Chair of the ASEAN Economic Ministers Meeting and Minister of Trade for the Republic of Korea. Of Indonesia, I'm sorry. For that slip of tongue. Whether Korean or Indonesian, she is as beautiful. His Excellency Karel de Gucht, Commissioner for Trade of the European Union, and to the Republic of Indonesia. Your Excellencies, members of the Cabinet, my job today is very simple and easy. My job is to welcome you all to this first ASEAN-EU Business Summit. I think we all agree that trade between us has been robust, from 203 billion, 271. What is Indonesia doing is going to be beneficial to ASEAN, and what is ASEAN doing is going to be supportive of Indonesia. So, ASEAN is now embarking upon community building, but also moving into the global community of nations. Here, assembled here, sir, Mr. President, is a portion of that global community, confident in ASEAN and confident in your leadership. We are awaiting inspiring words from you, Bapak President, of where Indonesia is going under your leadership and where ASEAN is going under your chairmanship. The European business community is coming to Indonesia, but all of you are hoping also that through this door, you will enter into the ASEAN courtyard. 10 economies unique among themselves, 600 million consumers with the middle class expanding, with the purchasing power rising. I agree with Pak Hatta. I agree with the Trade Commissioner from the EU that this is a new center of growth. Linking the robust East, China, Japan, Korea, with an emerging giant, India. And here is a fulcrum of regional cooperation here in ASEAN, with ASEAN centrality. Bapak Presiden, Ministers, Excellencies, we are all awaiting your wise counsel on where in the next 5 years, where in the next 10 years, this largest economy of ASEAN is going, and therefore where all ASEAN is going under your leadership this year. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Distinguished participants, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, of the first ASEAN-EU Business Summit 2011.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Excellencies, Secretary General of ASEAN, the EU Trade Commissioner, Excellencies, Ministers and Ambassadors, distinguished CEOs and business representatives from ASEAN and the European Union, distinguished speakers and guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to be here with you at this first ASEAN-EU Business Summit, when leaders and captains of industries and businesses from ASEAN and the European Union come together like this. I believe great things will happen. This business summit is timely for ASEAN as we make a final sprint to achieve a true ASEAN community by 2015. But in realizing this objective, we are not without challenges. The world recovery is indeed gaining strength, yet output gaps and unemployment remain high in advanced economies, while new challenges are building in emerging economies. In the US and Japan, economic growth for 2011 is projected to be lower. Meanwhile, the slow growth in Europe will keep fiscal positions and financial system in some countries vulnerable to shocks. In many emerging countries, inflationary pressures are building due to higher commodity prices. The recent global financial crisis has prompted global leaders to work together to achieve framework for strong, sustainable, and balanced growth. At the same time, the leaders also underline the critical importance to address the root causes of the imbalances by adopting the multi-year action plan for development, along with their commitment to address it in a coordinated fashion. The G20 in Seoul agreed to further strengthen macroeconomic policy coordination and take serious action. First, to continue international financial institution reforms. Second, to establish global financial safety net. Third, to ensure that G20 framework reflect the development dimension. Fourth, to continue to reject protectionism. And fifth, to strengthen the international banking system. Although these goals have been agreed at the global level, it is important that we seek practical results at the regional and bilateral level. Despite the challenges that we will continue to confront, the global economy is steadily improving. The IMF projects that for 2011 and 2012, the global economy is forecasted to grow by 4.5%. The advanced economies of America, Europe, and Japan will peak at 2.5%. We welcome the rebound of the EU economy following the economic crisis, with expectations that growth in 2011 will be similar to 2010 at around 1.8%, and we hope more than that target. An emerging market will grow up to 6.5% per year. The high growth of the emerging market is fueled by the dynamism of new economic powerhouses in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. We are also seeing rapidly growing South-to-South trade. In 2008, 54% of export growth in developing countries is due to demand from other developing countries. The figure was only 12% in 1998. In Asia itself, the picture is even brighter. The Asian Development Bank recently reported that by 2050, Asia could account for about half of global output and half of global trade and investment. The economic growth in Asia is driven by countries such as India and China, and also ASEAN. And they are all formulating strategies to maintain their economic growth. And these economies are also becoming increasingly integrated. For example, China is rebalancing its sources of economic growth. It is reorienting its sources of economic development to knowledge-intensive products, services, and environmentally friendly and sustainable processes. Meanwhile, India continues to liberalize its economy with reforms and deregulation to overcome energy subsidies issues and develop its infrastructure. Much also been gained in achieving an ASEAN economic community. When leaders agreed on the vision of ASEAN community in 2003, the size of the ASEAN economy was $700 billion US, and now it becomes $2.9 trillion US. If we include ASEAN and the 6 partners, which already has trade agreement, China, Japan, Korea, India, Australia, and New Zealand, then the size is amount to 15 billion, or the same economic size as EU and the US. Thus, the EU can be a strong partner with ASEAN to develop together. Europe has a much longer experience in economic integration and community building. ASEAN has and will continue to learn from the European experience. There is no doubt that ASEAN and EU are important to each other. EU is the second largest trading partner for ASEAN and the largest investor, while ASEAN is EU's 5th largest trading partner. There is also increasing people-to-people engagement, such as the forum we are attending today. There are some 7 million Europeans visiting ASEAN every year. Thus, it is timely to increase our engagement, including the discussion toward a more formal economic cooperation agreement between ASEAN economies and the EU. Indonesia and EU have just completed the Indonesia-EU Vision Report on invigorating EU-Indonesia partnerships. As chair of ASEAN this year, Indonesia has 3 key priorities. First is to ensure significant progress of achieving ASEAN Community by 2015. For the ASEAN Economic Community, this means a process of widening and deepening ASEAN economy as an engine of growth. But Indonesia's vision of ASEAN is also to ensure that we narrow the development gap between ASEAN economies and within the member countries of ASEAN. We need to aspire to a more equitable and inclusive ASEAN. In this respect, I believe infrastructure building and connectivity is not just about efficiency, but also about reducing disparities. Again, this offers opportunity for investment. ASEAN will also continue its cooperation and regional mechanisms to respond to macroeconomic, food security, and other challenges. The second priority is to strengthen ASEAN cohesion to craft East Asia-wide regionalism and architecture. This involves coordination for macroeconomic policy, for example, in dealing with food and energy security challenges, consolidations of the various trade agreements, and addressing climate change issues. The third priority is to ensure that regional agreements and cooperation can contribute to global agreements and governance. The increasing involvement of ASEAN in the international forum should be aimed not only to foster regional economic and financial growth, but also to encourage investment in the region and improve our resilience toward future crises. In partnership, ASEAN and EU can work together to manage the world economy, especially on issues of common concern in the G20 and WTO. For instance, we share the view regarding the importance of concluding the Doha negotiation to ensure confidence in the multilateral trading system and the high cost of lack of progress. Ladies and gentlemen, the global and regional circumstances have placed Indonesia in a rather unique position. While the rest of the world continue to grapple with the repercussions of the global financial crisis, our economy grew by 4% in 2008 and then 6.1% in 2010. This year we expect to grow by around 6.3%. And there are even predictions that growth could reach more than 7% by 2014. Our export is expected to reach close to 200 billion by this year, or double from 100 billion in 2006. And our reserves stand at over 100 billion US dollars, the highest in our history. After pressures from food prices last year, we have managed inflation this year with inflation coming down in 2011. Inflation for the first 4 months to 0.39% or 6.16% year on year, and we are keeping a prudent fiscal policy with deficit below 2%. Our debt to GDP ratio has shrunk dramatically from 77% in 2001 to 26% in 2010. These statistical achievements have manifested in our credit rating ever more improving. Agencies such as Moody's and Fitch have improved Indonesia's sovereign rating to only 1 to level below investment grade, and Indonesia's outlook to stable and positive. And since July 2010, the Japan Credit Ratings Agency has raised Indonesia's rating to investment grade. Call me an optimist, but I am confident that other international rating agencies will soon follow the Japanese lead and make positive revisions to their earlier assessment. And what does Indonesia have to show for its improved credit ratings? In 2010, investment rebounded to an all-time high of 208.5 trillion rupiah, or about 22.95 billion. For a country that experienced billions of dollars in capital flight during the late 1990s, this is an achievement worth noting. Let alone the fact that such a turnaround occurred within the span of just more than a decade. Indonesia is now the world's 17th largest economy, but our aim is to be in the top 10. And why wouldn't we have such optimism when even the IMF is predicting that Indonesia's economy will be larger than Australia's within less than a decade? I could go on raving about my country, but stating several other valuable statistics. But each delegate in this room will only have to step out of this convention center to witness all that I have mentioned here. The dynamism of the people, our newfound confidence, and our resilience to overcome all that has been thrown at us. What you will see is a portrait of society living in maturing democracy, a democracy that has created political stability, something very much sought after by the business community. A democracy that has allowed freedom of speech and freedom of the press unseen before in our history. In turn, this freedom has transpired into greater transparency and accountability needed for governance. What you will see is a portrait of a vibrant people aspiring to harness their full potential. In the next 20 years, Indonesia will enter a period of demographic fondness with a dependency ratio below 0.5. In other words, more than half of our population is within the productive age. There's workforce of more than 120 million people. More than half of our population will be below 30 years of age, bestowing the nation with a great pool of productive and technology-savvy human resources, and making Indonesia the second largest Facebook users in the world at 35.8 million users, out of which 54% are in the 16 to 24 age group. We have among us a new generation of dynamic entrepreneurs who are keen to bring Indonesia to the world and the world to Indonesia. And we have a lucrative market made up of the largest middle class in Southeast Asia, where half of the population live in modern lifestyles in urban areas. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to continue its growth as a stable democracy and an emerging economy, Indonesia must reach conditions of good governance and strong macroeconomic fundamentals. An economic growth of over 7% must be complemented by a poverty rate below 8 to 10% and corruption significantly reduced. In addition to harnessing the potential of the middle class, entrepreneurs, and tech-savvy alternatives, we must ensure a balanced growth across our provinces and rural areas, as well as attain food energy security. These are all the elements of growth with equity strategy that we have been pursuing all these years. In spite of our rich natural resources and huge workforce potential, much of this remains underexploited for the benefit of the people's prosperity. Challenges include development gaps between regions, underdeveloped infrastructure, and intensifying regional competition. Therefore, we have developed the master plan for the acceleration and expansion of Indonesia's economic development. Our master plan is built upon three strategies. The first is through developing 6 economic development corridors, in which industrial clusters will be established to take full advantage of our abundant resources. The second is through developing national connectivity, aimed at not only local integration, but also international connection. The third is through accelerating our scientific and technological capability and innovation, with a view to enhancing Indonesia's level competitiveness. Moreover, the ground spotting these 3 pillars will comprise of national policies in the field of investment, trade, finance, and public-private partnership. We welcome and encourage foreign participation in implementing these strategies. We invite you to seize the abundant opportunities and explore the wide possibilities in Indonesia for business and investment. Ladies and gentlemen, you have made an excellent choice of an agenda, and you have chosen just the right country for deliberating on that agenda. So let this summit be your chance to play a role in changing the paradigm on which economic policies are made, to turn the tide of events in favor of both our region. I look forward to receiving your concrete recommendations for win-win policy initiative, recommendations that will boost region-to-region cooperation. This is your chance. Let us together make things happen. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to declare the first ASEAN-EU Business Summit officially open. I wish you every success in your important deliberation. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, the opening address by President of the Republic of Indonesia for the first ASEAN-EU Business Summit. We wish all participants a productive dialogue during today's session with the hope to bring together the policy dimension of trade, investment, and business perspectives from both sides. His Excellency, President of the Republic of Indonesia, will now lead the ceremony. Thank you. Let us extend a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, once again, to His Excellency, President of the Republic of Indonesia.